Welcome back to Catalyst University. My name is Kevin Tokoph, and in this video, we're going to be discussing a fun topic, and that is McGill's Big 3 core exercises. So McGill is this guy who came up with 3 core exercises, and each one is designed to promote core stabilization in a different plane of movement. So one is the frontal plane, one is the sagittal plane, and the other is the transverse plane. And this is a good idea when you want to prep the core for increased stability prior to doing any kind of advanced or heavy lifts requiring core stability. So if you're going to go and train core, maybe it's unilateral farmer's carries, or maybe you're doing squats or deadlifts or something like that, and you want to get the core primed before you go do those exercises, these are some ideas to help with that core activation. Now, it can be used as a treatment approach for low back pain secondary to core weakness or impaired motor control. But I just want to preface this. You'll see this a lot on social media. It's like, oh, this will just get rid of your back pain. No, it won't. Okay. If your issue was entirely just, core wasn't turning on, maybe it would. But really with low back pain, it's a very complicated topic. And you really need a full depth examination, very detailed examination to find all your impairments. You can have low back pain that's not coming from the core. Your core could be super, super strong, but maybe one hip is very limited in range of motion. And it's causing issues on your squat, and that's causing back pain. Has nothing to do with the core, okay? You need an in-depth examination for this. But it is a good idea to warm the core up before you start doing heavy lifts, and that's where these 3 exercises come into play. So we won't cover these in this order, but you've got the curl up, or sometimes called the modified curl up. There is the bird dog, and then the side bridge. Let's get into these right now. So the first one that we're going to cover is the bird dog. The bird dog is good for promoting core stability in the transverse plane. So it's more of an anti-rotation type of movement. So the patient will assume quadruped position on their hands and knees like you see here. The patient's going to activate their core and extend one arm forward and the contralateral leg backward. And when we do this, we're trying to minimize lumbar and hip rotational compensations, keep the low back as close to neutral as possible. One thing you can do to train this anti-rotation is put a light object on your low back, like a foam pad here. And so the idea is when you go into the bird dog position, which we'll see in a second, I shouldn't see any excessive rotation of this foam pad. So I shouldn't see it tilt towards the camera. I shouldn't see it tilt away from the camera. A little bit of rotation is acceptable because, as you'll see, as I lift this leg up, my butt muscle is going to kind of push this up a little bit. But what you'll see in the clinic sometimes is you'll see somebody with some really bad rotation, and that indicates that they're not able to activate the core enough to stabilize against that. Okay, so let's take a look at it. So got my right arm there and my left leg, and this is the bird dog position. Okay. In this position, you want to keep breathing. It's tempting to stop breathing, but you're going to inhale through your nose and exhale through pursed lips as if you're blowing out a candle. And you're going to do this 5 times on each leg and hold 7 to 8 seconds per repetition. So I would hold this position about 7 to 8 seconds and do 5 times on each side. Okay? This is the full bird dog. There are, of course, regressions of this. If that's too challenging and somebody's not having enough of that core activation to stabilize against rotation, we can just do the arm. So there's one arm. And again, I'm going to hold that 7 to 8 seconds and do 5 on each side. Just like with the arm, I can do the same thing with the leg here. Send the leg back. Again, activate the core, guard against that excessive rotation, keep the lumbar spine neutral, hold 7 to 8 seconds per repetition, and do 5 of those on each leg. And that brings us then to the side plank. So the side plank now is going to stabilize in the frontal or coronal plane. Okay. So to perform this, the patient assumes a side-lying position here, but their knees are going to be bent like this, and they're resting on their forearm. If a person has shoulder problems on this side, it's going to be very difficult, and you may want to consider asking about potential shoulder problems before you have somebody engage in this, especially if they're pretty heavy set. It's going to be a lot of pressure on that shoulder, especially if they don't have the muscular control up there. Now from here, the patient presses their hip or hips off the floor so that the lumbar spine and hips are neutral in the coronal plane. So notice here my knee is going to stay on the table, so do my feet. My hip comes off the table and I come up high enough so that my lumbar spine gets into a neutral position. Now, with all of these McGill Big 3 core exercises, the dosage is exactly the same. You're going to do 7 to 8 seconds per repetition, and you're going to do 5 of them on each side for the ones that do have a biased side, okay? Also, the breathing, you inhale through the nose while you're doing the hold and exhale through pursed lips as if you're blowing out a candle. Since that dosage is the same for all of these, I'm going to stop going over that at this point. Now, the side plank can be progressed by turning it into a side plank clamshell. Let's take a look at that right now. So very similar, the bottom knee stays on the table, but now I bring this top leg up into a combination of external rotation and abduction, and technically this bottom hip is also in external rotation and abduction. And again, I go up high enough to where I can get that lumbar spine in a neutral position. Okay, so there's your side plank clamshell, sometimes called a stability clamshell. I can do these same exercises, but with the knees straight. This makes the exercise harder. Notice the feet aren't stacked now. One foot is behind the other, but I'm still on the forearm here. So here is side plank with the knees straight. Definitely more challenging even than the clamshell one that we saw previously. Okay, and then one last one here. This one, kind of the same idea. Now I'm going to dissociate the legs. So I guess this is more of a side plank with side-lying hip abduction. But again, this one is very challenging. I think I need to get my hips up a little higher here to get the lumbar spine in neutral. Maybe something I need to work on. But again, you get the idea. And you can progress those with resistance, bands, ankle weights, etc., etc. Okay? The last one here is the modified curl up. So this is done in the supine position on your back with one knee bent up to about 90 degrees. The hands are going to be under the apex of the lumbar spine curvature. Now during this one, you want to make sure that you maintain a neutral lumbar alignment during any movement in this exercise or its progressions. So let's take a look at the position first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hands under my back, and I'm going to bring one leg up. Doesn't matter which leg because we'll end up doing this on both sides. Once I'm here, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to gently brace my core. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to try to gently flatten my hands here with the apex of my lumbar spine. So I'm going to take my lumbar spine and try to flatten it a little bit against my hands. We talk about that in other videos. And then from there, I'm going to elevate my head off of the floor about 2 to 3 inches while I brace the core. Does not have to be far for the head. And you should feel your abdominals contracting there. Again, the dosage is the same here. Make sure that you keep breathing, especially with this. Okay? Put that down. And then we can switch legs. Same idea. Brace the core, elevate the head up, make the hold, continue breathing. One way that you can progress this is instead of just bringing the head up, you can start to bring a little bit more of the upper back, maybe try to get the scapulas a little bit off of the table. So basically turning it from just bringing the head up to start doing a little bit of a crunch almost and doing the hold that way. But that's a lot more challenging. And some people may need to have the legs held down to do that effectively. Okay. So those are the McGill's Big 3 core exercises. Are they an all-inclusive treatment for low back pain? No. Can they help or be part of a warm-up or a part of at least a treatment approach to low back pain? Yes, assuming that you find all the impairments with an in-depth examination of your patient. So hopefully this video gave you a good idea of the McGill's Big 3 core exercises and how to use them. Be sure to like my videos, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification button for notifications for all videos in the future. Thank you so much.